Mhm.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. My name is David Ebenbach, and I'm a VCCA Fellow, and I'm on the Fellows Council. And I'm here with Carlos Sirah and Felicia Van Bork. We're going to be getting a lot more of their work shortly. But I wanted to welcome you to the Fireplace Series and to say that it's honestly really moving to me that folks are here when I think a lot is weighing on our hearts right now. Certainly, the pandemic is still on us, and we're also at a moment that I hope is starting to feel like a breaking point around racial injustice and brutality in this country and the world, where outrage is in the streets and in the media at last. Um, and so it can be a little strange to say, well, let's pause to take in some art. But I think the way that I'm thinking about it, and hopefully everyone out there is too, is that it isn't really a pause. It's not a pause in our commitments. It's really, for me, a place for us to draw strength for our commitments. So I'm excited to be here at the Fireplace Series tonight. We don't have an actual fireplace, but we have each other, and we have the great work that we're about to witness. And I just would say, may it strengthen us as we return to the world from the fireplace. We're going to hear from each of our two artists tonight in return. We're going to start with Felicia Van Bork, of whom I'll just say you should check out her website, which has a lot of impressive things to say about all of the amazing things she's done. She's a visual artist. She's a teacher. She does, well, let me say from the website, it says that she makes collages to learn about the meaning-making possibilities of pictorial composition, and color grids to learn about the meaning-making possibilities of color relationships. I love the emphasis on meaning, and I love that we're going to get to spend some time with Felicia Van Bork. So let's get that started, and we'll let you take it away, Felicia.
Thank you very much, David. You mentioned how the news is weighing heavily on us these days, and that is certainly true. But I don't think that we're taking a break from the news, in the sense that an artist cannot separate him or herself from the zeitgeist. And I think you'll see that in the work that you see tonight. Thank you very much, VCCA, for letting me show my work. It is a lot of my work is not with me right now because it's away, locked up in two different big exhibitions, one at the Green Hill Center and one traveling show with the Mint Museum. So I'm going to show you a PowerPoint. I'm going to switch to that. There we go. I hope I'm doing this correctly. There it is. So there I am in my studio. It's in a neighbor's basement, which is a nice walkout basement with incredible 12.5-foot ceilings and some light. I'm holding one of my color grid paintings there. It's called Walk in the Snow Kiss. And it is based on one of the sketches in my sketchbook, which you will see shortly. I wonder if anybody can identify this studio. It's at VCCA. Do you know which one it is? In this studio, I'm working on unstretched canvas, and all the paintings that are on the wall are in the Radical Tenderness series. The painting in the upper right is called Wool, and it's just for saving space there. I hung it on its side, but you will see it again in this picture. There it is in an earlier stage, and there I am lying on the floor of VA4, wonderful studio. And I loved lying on the floor there because the concrete would cool off my body, because it would get pretty warm there in August, even though the AC was great. So the exhibition that is currently up is called North Carolina Women Abstract Painters, and it features the work of 5 different women who are working in North Carolina. And not all the work is painting, which is interesting. We all identify as painters, but the work includes sculpture and, in my case, collage. The curator is Edie Carpenter, and she came to my studio, and I was so moved that she selected many works from multiple bodies of work. I've never had a gallery or curator be willing to exhibit more than one body of work at the same time from one artist. And that meant the world to me, because to me, they are very closely related. The collages and the color works started in the exact same week in 2012 and have worked concurrently and reinforce each other ever since. So this, if I can show it, is a very quick view of the whole exhibition. That's one of my paintings. There's another painting based on a collage. That woman is my very best friend in the whole world, Corinne Duchesne, a VCCA fellow and an incredible artist. And there you see my collages, and you saw the color field paintings. In between those 2 bodies of work, well, in the middle of those is this vitrine with my sketchbook in it. It's one of 4 sketchbooks, and they're all full of these drawings. And to the side, next to the sketchbook, you can see many, many little scraps of paper with different color tests on them. And I would observe the colors, for example, of the landscape and note them down on a little scrap of paper, then fold it in half and set it up in direct light so that one side was in light and one side was in shadow. And then I would try to recreate those colors by mixing oil pastels so that there would be a light side and a shadow side. Eventually, those works evolved to be just the works like the paintings on the wall here, where you can see not a light side and a shadow side, but just the colors very softly relating to each other. I began to realize when I was doing these paintings that they had echoes and rhymes and relationships to each other, as if they were a crowd of people all chattering and getting to know each other. And this idea became so important to me that I was especially pleased when Edie Carpenter said she wanted to recreate this haphazard way that the paintings are displayed in my own studio. Here you can see me in the show, and all these little paintings were exhibited in their own space. So that it's like a little studio with 4 walls, all covered with these small 11 by 14 inch oil paintings. When the exhibition moved online, Edie Carpenter very generously interviewed each of the 5 artists, and this was a quotation that she pulled from her interview with me. This collage is called How to Hold November. As same probably for you, but for me, November has often been very significant, and it seems to grow only more weighty in its significance as the years go by, publicly and privately. This collage, like all of the collages in the How-To series, it's made of pieces of my monotype prints. And I make monotype prints at the printmaking studio that I manage at the McCall Center for Art and Innovation in Charlotte. That is a wonderful urban artist residency, and I urge you to apply there, but only after you're completely tired of going to VCCA, which of course will never happen. No, I encourage you to apply to the McCall Center. It's a wonderful residency. Here are a couple more of the collages, both 36 by 36 inches on braced panels. And you can see how there's a recurring image. But monotype is a technique that produces only one, a unique image. The print will pass through the press multiple times and result in one image. And my idea was to see if the adage, kill your darlings, would apply to visual art. I wanted to know if I tore up one of my beautiful prints, would my sense of preciousness be broken, and would I then advance, maybe through pain, but still advance into deeper territory in my own work? And I found that it worked very well and gave me a lot of energy. Here you can see me in my home studio and also in VA4 again in an earlier year, working on those collages. I did want to be able to see the collages on a larger scale, so I experimented with making 6-foot square paintings based on the collages. And this is one, but it's shown here right next to one of the color grid paintings. So you get to see that this transition is going on and the relationship between the two is very active. This is more how my studio looks today. The focus is on the radical tenderness paintings and how they relate to each other. The painting on the left is called 5 Gray Stones, and it was selected for the cover of an international print art magazine called Art Ascent. And I was delighted to be in the gray issue because I love gray. Although the gray that you can see in the painting is made up of lots of pure hues. The other exhibition of mine, the traveling show from the Mint Museum, is called Under Construction, Collage from the Mint Museum. And the middle image on the bottom row is called How to Mine the Past. And that one is now in the permanent collection of the Mint Museum, although it is now at some other museum somewhere in the Southeast, waiting for the museums to open again. And that is the end of my exhibition, my VCCA exhibition.
Thank you so much, Felicia. Folks, I want to encourage you that if you have questions, just like when we're at the Real Fireplace, we're going to have a Q&A period after both of our artists have shared their work today. So please be sure to put them in the chat, in the comments, and for either for Felicia now or at any time, or also for Carlos as he comes up. But thank you, Felicia, and we'll talk to you again shortly.
Thank you.
So I'd like to introduce Carlos Sirah now. He is a poet, a playwright, and a performer. He's going to read to us from his book, The High Alive, tonight. And the press's website calls it, says that it uses speculative lyric to help us explore where longing encounters memory and grief allows survival. And it points the way towards, and I think we all need this right now, moving beyond apocalypse. So with that, I'll leave it to you, Carlos, and I look forward to hearing your work.
Thank you, David. And thank you for everyone who is out there listening. I know I have some friends, some comrades out there in the audience, and I know we are far from each other in this moment. And I want to say that, like, I feel you here with me. And yeah, thank you for coming to listen. I want to acknowledge and give thanks to the Tongva people. I'm here in Los Angeles on indigenous territory. I want to acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge also that we are as David so kind of eloquently pointed to in the beginning, in the middle of a pandemic, and to hold that grief that, over like 423,000 people have perished. And we are trying to understand and channel that grief into something that makes life more possible. And also, I want to acknowledge the global uprising that's happening right now. Started here with Black people who have said enough, diasporic peoples who have said enough. And so I found the past couple of weeks challenging, but also, deeply, deeply energizing. And so with that, I'm going to read to you from my new work, which was published a little earlier this year, and it's been a kind of slow rollout because of the global kind of pandemic, but I'm happy to be able to share some of these words with you today. So I'm just going to read from the first section of one part of the book. So I'll show you the cover of the book. That's one cover, The High Alive, and I'm going to read from the utterances, as you can see there. And so this is the book in two parts. So it's the utterances and the light body. And this beautiful cover that you see was done by a Cuban-American artist who lives up in Seattle by the name of Juan Alonso Rodriguez, whose work is spectacular. And so I want to shout him out. I also want to shout out like 13 Press and my fam there. And I guess with that, I'll begin. For the living and the dead. In theory, we conjure body, 1,000 years, autochthonous spirits, ride sound towards body of woven nerve, of shattered mind, of high and blessed and holy duration, by mean and time, of the radiant flesh, by blessed tongues, sung and unheard, reprieve then the flatted fifth, not the war horn. In the night, among the many thousand breaths, expire and inspire of her, of Bessie, assemblage itself torn apart. Bessie's breath shreds the night, in return, the body. The night. Ask you, who hides beneath music? Dream, let Bessie inside. We fail in silence. Bessie's breath hovers about your bed. Again, your fear being the same. You go, migration, your body. You cannot. We fail, stutter, vacation, your body, no yield. Your heart would leap out. Holy breath of Bessie. Ask, when is safety? The war horn, not. The flatted fifth, please. Window open, breath vacates. Tonight, rest. Open your mouth. Fill your mouth. Be filled with sound. Bessie's breath, with us, Bessie, breath, defeated, linear hordes, imperial, longing, sound, regather, sound. 1,000 years ago, we leave the city. Remember the night. And so that piece that I just read is the kind of preamble to a festival conducted by the Theory of Bessie. And I'll read to you the entire first night, and this takes place over a succession of 13 nights where folks are gathered in festival to remember, to disturb, to unsettle. Night one, gather. Theory of Bessie, cults of fragment, heralds of possibility, interpreters of remnant, gather us in festival together. Each theory within theory of Bessie converges, processing down foothills into valley where you listen and wait to witness. Theory of Bessie instantiate the recollected city. After all that has happened, the exile, the return, the war that settled dust. 1,000 years, 85 trillion breaths. Theory of Bessie loved and salvaged sacred grain. Theory of Bessie shout and praise. Each theory within theory of Bessie revels in their sound. Theory of Bessie revel in the sounded body. Theory of Bessie is body, their manner and shape holy. Each theory bears stalk upon dry stalk of the grain who is endurance and makes possible endurance. Call the grain maize. Theory of Bessie sound their bodies down from the foothills, bare-chested, loose-footed, in garments of huge sound gathered in the years since the long war. They wear raiment colored and sounded in sumac or indigo or lichen or bloodroot, with skin covered or painted or free to the night. The night smells of kaifi and copal and hickory and pine. Theory of Bessie bear earthen vessels of water. Theory of Bessie bear sound. Theory, they bear wood and iron. Some theories bear arms of maize. Hear the cacophony of the multitude. Theory of Bessie sound out against catastrophe. Their number in the thousands reaches the field in the valley where you wait and listen with the others. You hear their sound before their body arrives. Theory of Bessie stream into the valley. Behold the multitude of the living. Theory of Bessie settle into the valley, onto the field, the clearing, that ritual. Or together, theories unsettle dust. While the multitude theories shape into space, listen. Theory or the space before the sound or the dimension of encounter. Theory of Bessie arranged the vessels of cast iron in that ritual space. Theory vessel upon vessel upon vessel upon vessel, water. Theory of Bessie taking breath as one. As these theories settle into this valley, so do other theories settle into other valleys across the lands. Those who would tell the story, keen and exalt the flatted fifth, not the war horn. Theory of Bessie unsettles story. Those who will tell the story do. Theory of Bessie performs. A city emerges. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos, for that. And thank you both for such beautiful readings and presentations. We're starting to get some questions accumulating in the chat, and I want to get to those, but I'm going to be a little selfish and ask you a question first. Both of you talked in really compelling ways about mess I think we could say. Felicia, you talked about how your studio space is haphazard and how that was reproduced in a show. And Carlos, you talked about people coming together to unsettle and disturb. And the word unsettled came up in the work itself as well. And so I guess I wonder if you could each speak to the role of mess in your work, in the process of producing work, but also in the work itself.
Would you like to go first, Felicia? I can if you don't.
Well, for me, I'm not a super tidy person, as you may be able to tell. But that the paintings were becoming an installation that depended on the presence of multiple paintings rather than the viewing of individual paintings was a complete surprise to me. So the mess turned out to be a delight and a source of further inspiration. So the connections between two pieces placed near each other or 5 pieces relating to each other led into another theme that would be developed with further paintings. It was very much like contrapuntal music, where all these different voices are flowing and threaded together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with that. I mean, I think about the contrapuntal as well, and I think with this work in particular, I was thinking about the nature of blues to describe condition, but also to kind of posit a future. There's something tragic, but also comedic in it, and that comedic turn, I think there's something really powerful. And I guess I want to relate that also to kind of the kind of unsettling to this nature of like, you know, how we are here in the United States and colonialism's kinds of the structures of colonialism still in place, right? Of settler colonialism. And we see its permutations in the shape or in the guise of gentrification now. And I think there is something about the dominant or the mainstream culture telling you that the story has been told. And so I think it's certainly the work of this theory of Bessie, this cult in the work to do that. But I think that's what we're seeing manifest in the streets right now is an unsettling of things, that like the story that has been prescribed is not the story that that's not the real story, and it's not over.
I think democracy depends on the messy intermingling of voices.
Thank you. And actually that connects to a question that Stephen Petro has asked in the chat about the VCCA leadership is right in the midst of thinking about how to respond to the current moment we're in. And as people who are thinking about the story that is being told by the dominant culture and ways to disrupt that, what do you think we as VCCA should be saying and doing out there in the world in this time? Small question, just, you know.
Well, I think that we should be actively standing up and speaking up for each other, not just saying, oh, isn't that fine? And yes, hooray, that's great, and reposting. But we do have to actively work for each other.
I feel like in this moment, everyone is presented with a maybe a rare species of opportunity here to do something radically different with the way that we operate, right? To look at our internal systems and to really, really interrogate those. And I think that goes for institutions, arts institutions, our kind of political institutions. I think that's across the board, that if people are willing to do that deep internal work, there may be redemption for you. Otherwise, I think, yeah,
it's 5 o'clock.
You may be, thank you, 5. You may find yourself a relic. And so I think people need to be having these really critical questions internally around, like, you know, how do we decolonize how we've done things and take a really rigorous look at those histories.
Thank you. And as insistent as your clock is, and we do want to keep to time here, I'm just going to take the privilege of asking us to do 5 more minutes just so you can each get a question, because there are a bunch of questions in the chat. So starting with you, Felicia, there's a question by the wonderful Corinne Duchesne to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about how you choose the color relationships in the large paintings?
No. Yes. I make many small paintings, and then some of them demand to be worked out on a larger scale. So that is how I choose the colors.
Wow, that was concise. Let's look to you to close out with the question by Lucas Beisch, in the chat. Where did your interest in festival begin? How have you seen this interest in gathering shift parallel to a moment of protest, uprising, revolution?
Oh, where did it begin? Where does anything begin? I don't know. I mean, for me, lots of things begin in the Mississippi Delta with family. And I mean, some of the earliest kinds of festivals that I knew were they happened around church. And the music that happens around church. And so I do think about festival, parade, and procession kind of along similar lines. I'm always thinking about them together, and distinctions might occur in the work. And so I think in this moment, so I've always been thinking about that, and I've always been trying to incorporate those modes of togetherness, of kind of organized togetherness, which holds chaos that has a kind of a thought or a gesture or an orientation, if nothing else. And so that orientation, I think, is really profound, and I think it holds so much possibility. And I was working on, I curated a performance series at the Chicago Cultural Center last summer with some really beautiful folks in conjunction with the National Veterans Art Museum. And yeah, we were thinking about procession. I'm also a U.S. military veteran. And so trying to unpack and think through these modes of received authority, received order versus something that might be a little bit more anarchic, but that also still has sense and orientation. And there was just a beautiful, wonderful parade protest that kind of just came down my street. I was napping in my wing chair, and it came down the street, and I was like, what is going on? And I went out on my balcony, and it's one of the most beautiful things I have seen. And that gives me so much, it lifted me. And I think the folks who are out here throwing these monuments, literally casting them into the sea, I think this is a powerful moment. If all of us can rise to it.
Well, thank you. This has been a powerful moment tonight. Thank you both for uplifting us. I don't want to get on the wrong side of Carlos's clock again. So hold us to time before we get in any more trouble. There are other questions in the chat. Please funnel that energy, folks, into seeking these two brilliant artists out and their work, and finding out more about what they've done and getting to know their work better. But if you're anything like me, I think you will feel in better community after this, and you will feel strengthened and lifted up and ready to go out there and get shit done.
Also, you can buy my book, The High Alive, at the Third Thing Press. I just want to shout that out. And then hit me up, because I want to engage you around this work, for real.
Hit me up. Very cool.
Thank you both.
Carlos, I loved your work.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for being here, and just have a great night or afternoon or whatever time of day it is wherever you are. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.